Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chapter 6. We're going to be discussing strategic management and how exceptional managers can realize the grand design. And that grand design that is envisioned from the senior most leaders. But even with those senior leaders, understanding how to pull all those puzzle pieces together. So let's explore Chapter 60. By the end of this chapter, you should be able to answer these several questions. What is strategic positioning and what are the three principles that underlie it? The 5-step recipe for the strategic management process. What are the characteristics of good mission and vision statements? How can 3 techniques, Porter's 4 competitive strategies, diversification and synergy, and the BCG matrix help you to formulate strategy? How does effective execution help managers during strategic management process? And how does effective execution help managers during that same process? So, I'm sure the question comes up, what is effective strategy? And we first start with the positioning of strategy. And that's where you attempt to achieve sustainable competitive advantage over the other businesses that are competing for the same customer base and vendors and suppliers and market share that you have or that you're trying to gain. And you notice the key is sustainable, because within any competition, like any game, any race, you may have a competitive advantage at one point, but you can lose your footing. So the goal is to work diligently to achieve sustainable advantage over others. Then it looks at being able to perform different activities from rivals or performing similar activities in different ways. So you could be doing some of the same things but coming at it at a different angle. When we look at some of the positioning and principles, it is the creation of a unique and valuable position. It requires trade-offs in your competition. It involves creating a special fit among the activities. So there's few needs with many customers. There could be broad needs with few customers, or you could have broad needs for many customers. So there's different ways in which you can tweak your position in order to fit the needs of your organization and the customers that you're seeking. Figure 6.1 is looking at 5 steps. And there's that you have to, of course, establish that vision and mission statement, assess where you are, formulate the big strategy, implement the strategy, maintain control, and then through feedback, you can revise any actions if necessary, and then you start the cycle back over. So when we assess the current reality, we're looking at where we currently stand. We see what's working, what's not, what could be different, how we can best maximize efficiency and effectiveness in our achieving our mission, which is also called an organizational assessment. This is something that I do through my business consulting firm, Foreman and Associates, and we work with different companies to create an assessment so that we can see where they are compared to where they would like to be or where they thought they would be. And we, of course, my company, we do this for ourselves. Every company that has a desire to be sustainable and have longevity really needs to frequently do an organizational assessment. So with the grand strategy, it explains your mission and how it's to be accomplished. It's the big picture. And when we look at the formulation, it's the process of choosing which different strategies work best and being able to tweak and alter them to fit your needs. And with that implementation, you put those plans into effect. You're actually going to implement what you're working towards. Under control, this is how we monitor for the execution of strategy and making any adjustments. Remember, we said control is any way we can track where we are versus where we want to be, how far we're deviating, and what we need to do in order to get ourselves back on track. Table 6.1 is looking at some key things for the mission statement and the vision statement. And the mission statement, remember, is saying, why are we here? Why are we in business? Why do we come into work these hours? Why do we put up with the stuff that we do? Why? That's what the mission statement says. So here's some key questions that your mission statement should be able to answer. Who your customers are, what the major products or services that you offer, what geographical areas that you compete in, what's your basic technology, your commitment to economic objectives, what are your basic beliefs, values, aspirations, and philosophical priorities, what are your major strengths and competitive advantages, what are your public responsibilities, and what image do you want to project to the public, and what's your attitude towards your employees. That is what your mission statement should be able to express. And that is something that when your employees recite the mission statement, they should also feel that it covers these bases. Your vision statement's going to say where you see yourselves in the future or how you want to make a greater impact in the future. So you should be able to answer yes to these questions. Is it appropriate for the organization and for the times? Does it set standards of excellence and reflect high ideals? Does it clarify purpose and direction? Does it inspire enthusiasm and encourage commitment? Is it well articulated and easily understood? Does it reflect the uniqueness of your organization, its distinctive competence, what it stands for, what it's able to achieve? And is it ambitious? The last one, if it's not ambitious, then it's not a vision statement. It has to be ambitious and aggressive and kind of scary. And if it's not, then you have to tweak it. So when we look at CI, which is our competitive intelligence, this is how we go about gaining information about our competitors' activities so that you can be able to almost play a game of chess. You can anticipate their moves and react accordingly. So if you think they're going to go left, you can go ahead and move a step ahead of them, and it helps you really stay strategically placed against them. You can use various things like public prints and advertising, investor information, and other informal sources. When we do a SWOT analysis, this is how we go about doing environmental scanning. We're looking at threats, opportunities, strengths and weaknesses internally and externally of our organization. And based on these 4 key components, we're able to see how we need to adjust for development and growth in changing times. And based on how the environments impact us, we can then see how that will influence the planning that we do strategically. Figure 6.2, as we're looking at these, the SWOT, we have both our internal and our external considerations, right? The environments. So what impacts your strengths and weaknesses are internal. You have work processes, culture, staff, financial resources, production capacity, your image. A weakness would be under the same category as strengths, organization, culture, so on and so forth. So how are you strong and weak in these areas? Those are all internal. Externally, you're looking at the various opportunities that could actually impact your organization or impact your move within a market. And you're looking at competitive analysis. You're looking at the impact of technology on your organization as well as others, and governmental impacts and other external factors. Then under threats, what possibly in those different categories, what could threaten your business? What could derail? What could totally dissolve your organization? So those are how you conduct the SWOT analysis. So when we look at our strengths, we're looking at our skills and our capabilities. What are we bringing to the table? When we look at our weaknesses, we're looking at the drawbacks. What are we not the strongest in? What areas are we exposed? That could potentially lead to an external threat coming in and actually harming the organization. So when we're analyzing the W in SWOT analysis, Roberta, the manager, might be assessing what? Is she assessing the possible challenges in the market, competitors' actions, high turnover of employees, or D, good financial resources of the firm? If you said C, it's high turnover, you're correct. And if you turn to page 169 in your textbook, you can read more about that. Now, under our opportunities and threats, as I said earlier, the external factors that can actually exploit your competitive advantage to help you benefit. The threats are any external factors that can hinder your progress and keep you from having a competitive advantage. So looking at Toyota, how would you analyze Toyota? Right? Internal strengths, attention to detail, and a frugality that shuns waste of every kind. Internal weaknesses, parts were supplied by outside companies rather than trusted traditional suppliers. External opportunities, stressed commitment to customers, still ranks high in quality. Wait a minute, let me go back. And Toyota, as far as the car they have built to last. They're some of the most amazing cars. And if you know anything about cars, their engines are used in some of their other parts are used inside of Lexus. Basically, Lexus is just a Toyota, just spruced up. But also, the Toyota engine is used inside of the Lotus, Evora, and other Lotus sports cars. It's amazing if you look at different brands of cars and who uses what, it's amazing. But Toyota has grown to be a very reputable brand. So forecasting, we're going to predict the future. Every organization should have some strong forecasters, people that can actually look at trends and analyze those trends and come up with a hypothetical extension of how previous events could actually relate forward into the future. Your contingency plan is your backup plan. It's the hypothetical, right? It's also called scenario planning and scenario analysis. You come up with different scenarios as to what would happen, and you come up with your plan B, C, D, E, F to Z. That's what contingency planning is all about. Benchmarking is how we're going to compare ourselves with the best. It's where we're going to look and see how we rank next to high-performing organizations around the world or in your region or in the country. So Porter came up with 5 competitive forces. We have a threat of new entrants, bargaining power of suppliers, bargaining power of buyers, threat of substitute products or services, and rivalry among competitors. Hold on a second, excuse me. Didn't mean to do that. So I'm going to break these down really quick. So threat of new entrants. Basically what happens in any kind of industry, any kind of marketplace, when you have someone new coming in, it's no different than when you are the kid and you're the popular kid in the classroom and a new kid comes in and they have a cool backpack and everyone's oohing and ahhing over their backpack. That's a threat. What are they doing? They're coming in, they got this new backpack. They're going to potentially be the most popular kid in the class. I got to do something about it, right? And so that's how it is in business, in the marketplace. When we see anyone coming in who could potentially be something shiny, new, more popular, they're a threat. And what other organizations do is they try to find a way to force that threat out. Bargaining power of suppliers. Oftentimes a supplier can actually have greater bargaining power because the supply and demand, and the fact is that they can be able to negotiate better rates for you to have to purchase from them. On the flip side is that if there's a bargaining power of the buyers, where the supplier has way too much product on hand and they need to be able to offload this product. And so that's when the buyer actually has an advantage. Then the threat of substitute products or services. This is simply where another product or service can come in and substitute for the current popular product or service. And so if I can come in either with better quality or for lower prices and it may not be identical to yours, but it's a good substitute, then guess what? People may get mine. So when you see a lot of bargain brands, they are substitutes. Or if you see an alternative to doing something a certain way, or use our product alternative, those are threats. Those are substitutes. And then, of course, your normal rivalry amongst competitors. Everyone's competitive. Everyone wants to get all the customers and all the money and all the vendors they can. And so there's always a natural rivalry amongst competitors. If you think about Microsoft and Apple, right? So there's so many, and it's all over the place. We look at our common grand strategies. We have a growth strategy where we're going to look at how we're going to expand, and that's using a focus on the revenues, our market share, how many employees we have, or the number of customers we have. That helps us determine how far and how fast we can expand. Stability is having to deal with little or no significant change. It's how stable you are, how well you can be able to where there's nothing major or drastic going on internally or externally of your organization. Defensive involves reducing your efforts, and a topic called, or a concept called, retrenchment. Now, how can you implement these grand strategies? As I shared those three categories, let's look deeper into them. So under a growth strategy, you could be able to expand into new products or services. You can acquire a similar or complementary business, right? You'll see Facebook and Twitter. They purchase up a lot of similar or complementary businesses, and that's how they grow even more. Stability strategy. You can go for a no change strategy if, for like example, you found that too fast growth leads to foul ups with orders and customer complaints. So you just decide to, let's stick with a no change strategy. A little change strategy means that if your company has been growing at a breakneck speed and it feels it needs a period of consolidation, it needs to be able to pull things back into compact the progress. And then under a defensive strategy, you can be able to reduce costs by freezing all hiring or tightening expenses. You can also declare bankruptcy, and you can do a turnaround. And where we mentioned earlier with retrenchment, and that's where you have a view toward restoring profitability. So looking at figure 6.3, under strategy, we can either go wide or narrow based on the target market. And you see under cost leadership, differentiation, cost focus, and focus differentiation. Those are the four strategies, and you see in which that market this target is going to either be wide or narrow. So under the cost leadership strategy, you're going to keep your costs, which also includes your prices of either your product or service, below where your competitors are. And that way you can get a larger, wider market. This is usually something that you see with some of the big box retailers who are able to drop their prices considerably, and they can then price out their competitors to get more consumers. And so usually you get consumers in underdeveloped or in developing areas where the concept of going for the bargain over quality first can be key. So a CEO puts pressure on the R&D managers, which is research and development, to develop products that can be created cheaply. And when you think about this concept, what strategy would they be following? Would it be cost leadership, differentiation, cost focus, or retrenchment? The answer is cost leadership, right? We're looking at how we can be able to produce something for less. So under the differentiation strategy, you're offering a product that is unique and superior in value compared to others, but you're targeting a wider market. And so you can look at some companies that offer low, mid-range, and high-end products, right? And what it is that they then differentiate their strategy so that they can then be able to offer something that's unique and superior in value, but to a greater market who could still be able to afford it. If that makes sense. Under cost focused strategy, this is where the focus on keeping your cost of your product below your competitors, and then you're going to target a very narrow market. Under focus differentiation, your products are unique and superior, and they're targeting to a narrow market. And let's go back up to that really quick. So with that, oh, no, I'm good. That's good. All right. Making sure I covered everything. So under single product strategy, this is where you make and sell just one product within your market. It's very benefit focused. It is has risk vulnerability, and the reason why there's risk vulnerability because you're only selling one product in that market. So if that product doesn't sell well, or if there's any kind of recall or any kind of issue, you risk your business being impacted in a major way. Under diversification, we have different kinds of diversification, but this is where you're going to operate several businesses in order to spread the risk, and you have both related and unrelated. With related diversification, that's where you under one ownership, the organization operates separate businesses that are related to one another. Under unrelated, you're operating several businesses under one ownership, but none of them are related. Pretty simple. So let's look at the advantages of having a related diversification. It's reduced risk because there's more than one product. There's management efficiencies because administration is spread over several businesses, right? There's synergy because the economic value of keeping things separate, related businesses under one ownership, and having management is greater together than if the businesses are separate and having to be valued separately. Under the BCG matrix, this is where you evaluate strategic business units on the basis of their growth rates and their share of the market. I don't know why they use these particular characters, but they're cute. I didn't do it. I'm not going to take credit for it, but they are cute. But this is how you go about doing that. So let's look at figure 6.4. This is probably a better visual. You have both a high and low market growth rate and a high and low market share. So you have your stars, your question marks, your cash cows, and your dogs, right? Under the stars, they have a high growth rate, high market share. They're definite keepers, right? You can see that. High and high. Under cash cows, they have low growth rate, very slow, but they have high market share. So they have greater market share. And their income finances the stars, and it finances the question marks. Under the question marks, they're risky. They're risky new ventures. Some of those ventures will become stars and some will become dogs. So some will have high growth and high market share. Some will have low growth and low market share. The dogs have low growth and low market share, and they should be tossed aside because they're not going anywhere. They're slow to grow and they barely have any part of the pie. So dogs get tossed to the side. So that's why you have the question marks, because question marks can go into either of those two categories. They're very risky, so it's rare that they become cash cows. Not that they couldn't, but it's rare. So when we maintain strategic control, it's about being able to do a cycle. It's a constant circle of engaging people, keeping things simple, staying focused, keep moving, engaging people, keep it simple, stay focused, keep moving, right? That is how you maintain strategic control. Engage people, keep it simple, stay focused, keep moving. The moment you disengage or you are not consistently engaging, You make simple complicated. You lose focus. You stop moving. There's no way to maintain strategic control. There's no way to even gain strategic control. And so these four things work together, and it's a synergy and cohesiveness that has to work. It's like making a great chili or gumbo or soup or stew. Everything kind of has to come together. So we have to execute. We got to get things done. You have to be part of the getting it done party, right? Not what we're going to do, but what you're doing, what is done. So execution. You're going to question, analyze, follow through in order to be able to take the strategy, mesh it together with what's happening, what's real, align those people with the goals that you have in place, right? So you put your human resources and tie those to the goals so that you can be able to achieve the results that you promise to your team, that you promise to stakeholders. And this is the central part of any strategy that you have in an organization is execution, getting it done. You could talk about it all day long, but when are you going to do it? When are you going to go ahead and push the button? When are you going to pull the trigger? When are you going to do the job that you said you're going to do? That's what execution is all about. So John owns a piano sales and tuning store. He wants to be the biggest retailer in Midlands. Adding salespeople would be part of his strategic locution, execution, efficacy, or efficiency. Which one? He's going to add salespeople because he wants to be the biggest retailer in Midlands. If you said B, execution, you are correct. So we have three core processes of business: people, strategy, operations. People, you have to consider who will benefit you in the future. Who is going to help you get to where you need to be in the future? Strategy, how success will be accomplished. How will you go about doing it? Operations, what path needs to be followed in order to get the job done. Those are the three core processes. Now, what questions should your strategic plan address? Table 6.4 outlines these. 1, what is the assessment of your external environment? What's going on outside of your company? 2, how well do you understand the existing customers and markets? 3, what is the best way to grow the business profitably? Profitably, and what are the obstacles to growth? So how can you grow and be profitable, and what is going to possibly hinder your growth? 4, who is the competition? Who is going to possibly knock your clock? Who is the company? What companies out there can actually put you out of business? 5, can the business execute the strategy? Can you even do what you said you can do? Can you even make it happen? 6, are the short-term and long-term balanced? Are your goals and your processes and your resources, both short-term and long-term, balanced? If there's imbalance, you need to find out where and how to adjust for it. 7, what are the important milestones for executing the plan? You have to have some major benchmarks along the way. You have to have some points along the way so that you can actually track through your control mechanisms to see how well you are faring compared to where you'd like to be. 8, what are the critical issues facing the business? What is potentially waiting to bite you on the backside? 9, how will the business make money on a sustainable basis? That is a key one. How can you make money, not just today, but 50 years from now, 100 years from now, 300 years from now? How can you be able to do it sustainably and consistently throughout? That is major for any organization. Building a foundation of execution. You have to know your people. You have to know your business. You have to insist on realism. Can't be this dreaming, let's sit back and kick our feet up and dream upon a star. No, it has to be real. You have to keep it real. Knowing your people and your business, you have to engage consistently, intensely with your employees. They are your best resources, right? They're also the most expensive resources that your company has, basically. So engaging with them. Insisting on the realism. Don't let people avoid reality. I'm telling you, don't sit out here and start daydreaming outside your window. You have to focus on the realism. Setting clear goals and priorities. Focus on a few goals rather than having tons of goals. Let's narrow it down. 5 goals a day or 5 goals a week. Let us focus on those goals and what is the priority. Let's prioritize A, B, C, or 1, 2, 3, right? Follow through. Follow through. follow through. It's focusing on establishing accountability and checking on results. Who is being held accountable for what? How are we doing? And how have we deviated from the plan, or how on our target are we? You have to follow through with it. You think about basketball, and the moment somebody throws up for a jump shot, what do we all cringe? We cringe if they turn their head away from the shot, as though the ball has already gone through the basket. No. Follow through is that you're going to continue staring at that ball until you know it's made it through the net. Because if it hasn't, you have to then out hustle everyone else to try to go and rebound that ball. It's the same kind of concept and the same kind of follow through that you must have in business. You do not turn your face away from the ball until you know it's made it through the net, right? So that's follow through. Reward the doers. Show those people that are your top performers that they matter. Make it clear. Celebrate them. But also make sure that you reward people for their small accomplishments, the people who are finally etching their way through. Expand the capabilities. Expand your team members' abilities. Develop your talent. Help them to be better. Help them along their career path. It may not be that they stay forever with you. You may be the stepping stone for something greater for them, so they can be all they need to be and all they're supposed to be. So you need to be able to expand their capabilities and know yourself. Do the hard work of understanding who you are, what your company means to your team, to all your stakeholders, and what you want it to mean to potential stakeholders. But as you as the manager, as you as the business owner, you have to know yourself as well. So I always tell people that when you're doing a SWOT analysis on your organization, you need to also do a SWOT analysis of each team member who has their hands in any project or program. What is everyone's strengths, weaknesses, and what are the potential opportunities and threats that present themselves? Know yourself. With that, this is the end of the Chapter 6 lecture. If you have any questions, you know how to reach me. Thank you, everyone.